Good evening and welcome to the Sunday edition of Poland Daily. I'm Konrad Gorlinski. This is the news. Ukrainian military intelligence has released information that Russia may be getting ready to disconnect the Zaporozhya Nuclear Power Plant from the Ukrainian power grid. One clue among many is the fact that most Ukrainian workers at the plant have been sent on vacation. Yesterday in the morning, a kamikaze drone hit the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. The largest city of Crimea is located in the southern part of the peninsula, approximately 270 kilometers from the front line. Russians are now leaving their homes en masse. By road, there are 3 exit routes. 2 of them lead northwards to Ukraine. So most choose the 3rd route across the Crimean Bridge and the Kerch Gulf. There are gigantic traffic jams there, and the Russians inspect every car. The situation in Crimea is definitely not conducive to tourism. In addition, Ukrainian hackers managed to take over Crimean television. A fragment of a speech by the president of Ukraine appeared on screens. Let each of the Russian occupiers who took the road of Crimea remember, there will be no peace on this land. The actions of the Ukrainian armed forces far behind the front lines are achieving goals such as ammunition warehouses, communication and command centers, start a new phase in the war unlawfully caused by Russia. All thanks to the weapons that have come to Ukraine from the West, including the U.S. According to political scientist Dr. Agnieszka Rogozhinska, this method of fighting has 2 advantages. The first is destroying strategic goals. The second is a psychological goal. It's directed, first of all, to the Russian society, to the soldier, who so far has been fed the Russian propaganda that we're dealing with defense actions. On August 9th, as a result of a rocket attack, several explosions took place at the Russian Saki airport near Novofedorivka, north of Sevastopol. Several Su-24M aircraft were damaged. President Volodymyr Zelensky called for vigilance before the celebration of the 31st anniversary of Ukraine's independence, which takes place on August 24th. That's just 6 months since the beginning of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We must all be aware that this week Russia may try to do something particularly nasty, something particularly cruel. This is our enemy. Every week during these 6 months of war, the Russians did the same thing over and over again, something gross and cruel. Ahead of us is the day of our flag and the day of independence. Before us, honoring the veterans of the war for freedom of Ukraine and Crimea. The United Nations Secretary General has said there's cooperation with the U.S. and the EU to overcome obstacles to the export of Russian food and fertilizers. Ukraine and Russia are called the breadbasket of the world. 1/5 of the world's grain production comes from these 2 countries. High numbers of equipment are given that the Germans want to hand over. Later, it turns out that procedural formalities stood in the way. According to Ukraine, the direct losses to the Ukrainian economy caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine amounted to over USD 113 billion. In turn, the Security Service of Ukraine announced that only 1 out of 20 Russian missiles have hit military targets. Well, today, Somali forces finally managed to complete a rescue operation to rescue hostages being held at a hotel in the country's capital, Mogadishu. Islamic terrorists from the Al-Shabaab organization bombed the Hyatt Hotel and took as many as 100 hostages. At least 12 people were killed in this weekend's attack. It's shocking that innocent people have lost their lives here. The health ministry will announce the exact number of victims in the near future. The security forces were involved in saving people individually and in groups. We managed to save 106 people, including women and children. The damaged hotel is currently being cleaned. I express my condolences to the family of hostages, residents, and soldiers who died here. The target of the attack was the Hyatt Hotel in Mogadishu. Radical Islamists from Al-Shabaab group burst into the building with explosives and then opened fire on the hotel guests. And during the 30 hours of fighting, at least 12 people died, mostly civilians, but many more were saved. Al-Shabaab fighters were driven out of the capital in 2011 by African Union forces, but the group continues to control rural areas and has the ability to carry out attacks on civilian and military targets, coinciding with today's International Day of Remembrance and Tribute to the victims of terrorism. Well, the daughter of the ultra-nationalist Russian ideologue Alexander Dugin, who publicly supported Russia's complete absorption of Ukraine, died today in a suspected car bomb attack near Moscow. Daria Dugina, a daughter of the Kremlin ideologue Alexander Dugin, died in a bomb blast in a Toyota Land Cruiser she was traveling. The vehicle belonged to her father, and commentators said he was probably the target. Father and daughter were at a festival near Moscow, and Dugin, at the last minute, decided to switch cars with his daughter. Investigators, who described Daria Dugina as a journalist and political expert, said they had opened a homicide investigation. Alexander Dugin, Daria's father, has long advocated the unification of the Russian-speaking and other territories of the vast new Russian Empire. Daria Dugina was 30 years old, broadly supported her father's ideas, and appeared on state television supporting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And finally, Russia is developing its own financial information transmission system for a transition from the SWIFT payment system. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Pankin said in an interview with the TASS news agency yesterday. The new system is to be protected from external pressure and facilitate Russian banks and their clients to conduct international payments, Pankin said. The diplomat added that some countries initiated or participated in freezing Russian assets, but it only caused immeasurable and irreparable damage to their own commercial credibility. He said the action demonstrated to the world what is the true meaning of the so-called rules-based international order, championed by the U.S. and some other Western countries. Many countries had noted Western sanctions on Russia were illegal and were considering de-dollarization in order to safeguard their sovereignty, Pankin said. He stressed that Russia reserves the right to take special measures in response to further sanctions from the West, and that his country has been prepared for the escalation of the situation. Since the Russia-Ukraine conflict broke out, Western countries have imposed multiple financial sanctions on Russia, including cutting some Russian banks off from the SWIFT system, freezing the assets of the Russian central bank, and banning transactions with it. But the sanctions have also brought some restrictions to the use of the U.S. dollar, raising doubts about its safety. Some experts pointed out that sanctions have destabilized the foundation of the dollar hegemony and accelerated the decline of its status. As usual, thanks very much for tuning in tonight. Please stay with us for Poland Daily Weather, Poland Daily Business, and other programs. But from me, it's have a wonderful week ahead.